The best of Money Matters. Right Business.
Welcome to The Right Business, where we dive deep into the stories of trailblazers who dare to disrupt the status quo, find the gap in the market to find the right business. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. We live in a world where our connection to nature often feels passive. Water the plant, count your steps, repeat. But what if your plants could do more? What if they could cheer you on, reward your movement, or even become part of a social gamified world? Floramis is here to change the way we connect with nature, wellness, and even each other. It's a sustainability-driven platform that turns real plants into digital companions, blending movement, play, and purpose through gamified experiences. And to share more about how it all works and why it might just change how you see your houseplants, joining us today is Ojus Sharma, who's the co-founder and CEO of Floramis. Hi, Ojus. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Hongbin. Pleasure to be here.
That
was a fantastic description you just gave, by the way. Really
Thank you so much. Well, Ojus, we just got to find out from you, what prompted you to create Floramis?
So it actually started off as kind of a pet project for me and my childhood friend.
Okay.
Back in our final summer of university, we saw post-COVID a lot of our friends were buying plants, but they weren't able to keep them alive. So we decided, what if we could turn plants into the next Tamagotchi, if you're familiar with that? Because that was our childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from there, it kind of we realized plants are more ubiquitous than just the house plants around us. They're actually, being in the garden city ourselves, they're all around us. So we thought, what if we could translate this into turning all plants into sort of social experiences for people around everywhere?
Okay, that's very interesting. Turning plants into social experiences is such a fresh angle. What was, missing in how people traditionally interacted with plants or, wellness apps that you felt needed fixing?
So we saw this as kind of a hole in the sort of entertainment space, but it also was a merging point of things like the wellness space, the sustainability space, the gaming space. So a few different things that we saw were, the first thing that inspired us was Pokemon Go. And me and my co-founder were huge fans of Pokemon Go, but when we initially played it, it didn't really live up to the hype because that whole vision of being able to interact with the real world as your game world, that was what sort of drove this in the beginning, because it was lacking any kind of tangible anchors, which we thought plants served as. In terms of how we saw the lacking connection with plants itself, a lot of people treated plants as inanimate and non-living creatures. Right? But they are living things. They provide so much for us. And we found that a very simple change inspired a lot of behavioral change in our players, which was the simple fact of giving these plants emotions and faces.
Speaking of Pokemon Go, my mom used to play that, and she used to ignore my calls because she would be busy playing it. So I'm sure if she downloaded Floramis, she would ignore my calls once again. But what made you feel that plants, could become a medium for connection, wellness, and play? Plants and games, they don't really coincide or connect really well together. That's not what we think stereotypically, right?
Yes, you've hit the nail on the head with that. It was something that was extremely novel. So it was something we didn't have any kind of basis for relying on. So we did run a pilot in my university, SMU, to experiment with this exact thing, right? The reason we stuck with plants is, like I mentioned before, they're called alternate reality games like Pokemon Go, that blend the real world with the game world. They were missing some sort of tangible physical anchor that would drive players to kind of make that connection a lot stronger. Most of them usually just use location-based gameplay, but once the phone is put away, the Pokemon disappears, right? It doesn't stay in the real world. It's just on your phone screen, and that breaks the immersion. So what we decided was, hey, what if we could get physical anchors and place those? So once the person puts the phone away, there's still something that they can relate to and connect with in the real space. But that would involve a lot of capital expenditure. Good thing for us, our capital was built millions of years ago and is all around us. So plants were the most ubiquitous objects that are still differentiable from one another, like Pokemon are, such that we can use them as our main characters, basically. And we found extreme success in our university pilot, where we drove a lot of people running around the campus, scanning plants and figuring out the differences between each plant, which is really heartening to see.
I can just imagine. I mean, you've described Floramis as a sustainability-driven software ecosystem. So what exactly does Floramis do for both individual users as well as businesses?
So we are a sustainability-based ecosystem because what we're doing is we're driving consumer behavioral change from the ground up, right? A lot of sustainability-focused startups that you see around you nowadays, they talk more about the macro aspect, right? How do we reduce emissions? How do we do this? How do we do that? But our focus is mainly on the consumer behavior side because we want to get them to start caring about the environment before we can ask them to affect change, right? If majority of people are indifferent towards the environment, I'm sure if you asked, like on a survey on the streets, do you care about the environment? 99% of people will say yes. But if you follow up with those same people and ask them to maybe, start spending more on sustainably sourced products or spend their weekends cleaning up the beaches, I think that number will reduce drastically.
Right.
So the main kind of, or at least our hypothesis, is that there's a lack of emotional connection to the problem, which is what we want to try and build. That we want to build that emotional connection with people's direct surroundings before we can actually ask them to take the bigger step to start being more sustainable. And in terms of your question for businesses, in the same regard, businesses are made up of people. And at the end of the day, you can have two approaches to sustainability. You can have kind of a mandate coming in from up top, telling you to be more sustainable, or you can have kind of a change from the ground up, where the employees themselves want to affect this change because it's a part of their daily routine, because they have some kind of emotional connection to it, and because they're truly connected with the surroundings around them. I think you know which one will probably have a greater impact.
Right. Makes sense. I want to know, okay, and I'm sure our listeners want to know as well. Let's say I have a house plant and, I want to gamify it. How exactly do you use the app? How can users interact with the app?
Right. So the Floramis app that we initially made was to turn your houseplant into a Tamagotchi.
Okay.
You simply just scan your plant and it turns it into a virtual avatar called the Florami, who you have to take care of in real life and its emotional needs as well.
Okay.
We have since kind of moved forward as well. We're still working on that, but that's a larger project. We've moved forward and released a smaller version called Floramis Walk as well, so that people can start engaging with the plants around them without the necessity of, having to care for them per se. So it reduces the friction for the user.
Is it able to scan what type of plant it is, or do you have to manually put it in?
No, it identifies exactly what type of plant it is, and it generates a virtual avatar for it based on the plant. So every Florami looks unique as well.
That's very interesting. I mean, this will really get people to remember to, water their plants because most of the times we forget and then they end up dead. But anyways, it is such a clever twist that you've done here, using real-world plants as functional tools for engagement. And that idea really comes to life in your latest launch, as you mentioned, the Floramis Walk, which turns something as simple as walking into an in-game reward system. It sounds super fun, motivating, and rooted in movement and mindfulness. So tell us more about this as well. I mean, how does it work exactly, and how does this tie into the core Floramis experience?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, our initial we've gone through a lot of iterations, being first-time founders ourselves. We went through a lot of iterations, and while our initial scope was to create that perfect Tamagotchi-based gameplay, we realized that what we were building was a bit too large in scope. So we wanted to push out something a bit more niche and focused and having a tighter gameplay loop, right, while we built this larger scope project. And that's where the idea of Floramis Walk came in, where we modularized certain aspects of our initial product and turned it into a very simple walking app. At the end of the day, with Floramis, we once again use that merger between the real world and the game world and drive some kind of positive change for the users. And the first thing we want to do was, through Floramis Walk, turn your steps into kind of a more rewarding experience. Everyone knows it's good for you to get your daily steps in, but there's not much reward for it that's extrinsic, right? It's all intrinsic, and you get to see an impact on your health in the long run. But people like to be given that dopamine hit on the spot.
Right.
So what you can do with Floramis Walk is each step you take earns you currency, known as Lux in the app. You use that Lux to charge up your scanner to scan plants, and every plant has rewards for you. As you go around scanning plants on your walks outside, you also get to fill up your Florapedia for all the collectathon lovers, the Pokemon enjoyers. This is sort of like our version of the Pokedex. There's about 50 different Floramis to find around you in Singapore and around the world. So, and you get to learn more about the plants as well and share the images that you take of each plant and where you took it for other users.
Sounds like fun. I know what I'm going to do over this weekend. But so, I mean, you did mention that you had a pilot program for SMU students and it was a hit. What other feedback has there been? Any surprising use cases or user behavior so far?
Yeah, so part of the demo that we launched also had a almost social network kind of feature where users could leave messages on specific plants. And the only way for others to access that would be to scan that exact same plant. So this creates sort of like hidden message boards all around the world, and users could go on the map and just view all these message boards from anywhere in the world. But they had to physically go there to post their own message, which creates a kind of unique interaction with the social media itself. And what we found, at least my personal favorite, where there are two stories. One was here in Singapore, where we saw a lot of messages popping up in Pasir Ris, near the coastline, actually. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but I'm sure a lot of the male listeners will know that there's a ferry that goes to Pulau Tekong from there. And that is where most of us go to serve our national service.
Right.
And there were a lot of messages from people who were doing their basic military training, who had downloaded the app and were leaving encouraging messages for each other. That, one more month to go, one more week to go, you guys got this. And most of these users probably never saw each other. It's just that they shared this one communal entry and exit point from Singapore.
That's so
and
sweet.
The other really nice use case we saw was a couple in Norway, I believe. It's one of the Nordics, who I'm guessing, this is just a hypothesis, probably had work schedules that didn't align with each other. So they would actually leave messages for one another on their houseplants. And that was really, really heartwarming to see as well.
Wow, that is so cute. The way that, this platform has made people feel more connected, even if it's with people that they've never met before. Well, Ojus, you've mentioned that you were inspired by games like Pokemon Go and Tamagotchi, but, those games or those platforms, they've been a fad once, they've been a hit once, and then that kind of craze fizzled out in the years following that. So how do you keep your platform feeling alive and relevant? Is the community playing a role in shaping the future of Floramis?
Yes, so I think that's a very good point you brought up. Like I mentioned earlier, this modularization that we did, especially starting with Floramis Walk, it's also leading into our next launch, which is coming up very soon, called Floramis Focus, which is a mindfulness tool. We're turning our little plant-based avatar mascots into tools for mindfulness and mental well-being. And this ties into the larger kind of ecosystem, right, where we want to affect positive change through each of our products so that people sort of remember our products as what helps them keep a more positive lifestyle. And this is what we believe will help us not just be a fad and continue onwards, because, I'm sure anyone who has decided to start going to the gym more or reduce, carbs or sugar or whatever must realize is once you get through that initial hump of it being super tough, it actually becomes a routine and it becomes something you do on autopilot. So we want to sort of turn Floramis into mascots for positive change rather than them just being cute little toys.
Well, before we let you go here, Ojus, what does success look like for Floramis? What do you hope Floramis to be in the future?
Well, like I mentioned, if people see our mascots, our characters as symbols for positive change, that would be the best. Like I mentioned earlier, Floramis Focus, that's something I would like to tell the listeners all about. You can check it out on our website today as well. It's turning these toys into little figurines. So if you see blind box figures nowadays are the craze in Singapore, we wanted to take that same thing and turn it into something that's a positive change. So these little guys, you can actually, they come with a little companion app. So whenever you want to study or get work done and you don't want to scroll on Instagram or TikTok, you put this guy on top of your phone, and the app actually detects that it's sitting on your phone. And the longer that you focus, the more it levels up, and it goes on its own little adventures.
Ooh.
So after each focus session, you get to see what sort of mischief or adventures it got up to, and it rewards you in that way as well.
Amazing. I think this is a platform for me. Well, thank you so much, Ojus, for coming on the show and sharing more about Floramis with us.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was Ojus Sharma, who's the co-founder and CEO of Floramis. This has been The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.